Hey everybody, welcome to Tathaastu. Today I'm going to talk to you about thug life. But before I talk to you about thug life, I think the theme around this sort of video is going to be based on one of Kamal Haasan's eternally famous dialogues, which is எங்கங்க கடவுள் இல்லைன்னு நான் சொல்லவே இல்லை இருந்தா நல்லா இருக்கும் தான் சொன்னேன், which roughly translates to I've never said that God doesn't exist. I'm just saying that it'd be great if he exists, which is the conundrum I'm also in when it comes to Thug Life, because Thug Life is a movie that could have been great for the kind of concepts and the kind of abstract ideas that it wants to talk to us about. But what it becomes is sort of two halves of two different movies almost. And if I was to sequence it to understand what the thought process of the creator was, I think this is a movie about crime and punishment. The crime being selfishness, the crime being an individual who's so selfish about life that he believes death is always after him. A person who believes that there is no respite to him because the choices that he is forced to make will always have death sort of holding a sword on his neck. And every choice, therefore, that he makes is about himself. That sort of grandioseness that this person feels, this megalomaniacal feeling that almost at one point you feel like this person can't be thinking that death is after him just because someone passed away in his life. He actively made choices in his life, and by this character I mean it's the Kamal Haasan character. This character has made active choices to be selfish, to sort of want everything within the current sphere of his life, to have the market as the biggest mafia gang, to be a real estate like gangster, to have his wife love him all the time, to have a mistress who absolutely adores him, to have an adopted sort of son who will never go against him and will always be loyal to him, to have an elder brother who will always have his back. It's almost idealism that this character believes, and this idealism is both naive because this character knows that almost has a sense that he is being naive, but at the same time just is so arrogant and selfish about himself that he does not want to believe that there are consequences to his action. And because there are consequences to his actions, he is left at the interval point in a state where he is absolutely helpless. And then he comes back in the second half with no methodology to sort of process the guilt that comes out of realizing how selfish he was. And this exploration, and this is the exploration that I think the creators were possibly going for, which is how does he reconcile with the sort of guilt that he's had because of the kind of selfish acts that he's done. He loses his adopted son, he loses his wife, or at least he loses the memories of his wife, he loses his mistress, he loses his home, he loses almost everything in his life. And yet we are distant because the method by which this character sort of resolves that guilt is through violence. And it's beautiful to think of an idea where someone can resort to violence as a way to sort of resolve guilt, because more often than not, when someone is guilty, the struggle is internal. In this case, the struggle is sort of externalized into martial arts, into hand-to-hand combat, super violence, incredible like set pieces. But because the internal is never really showcased, that guilt-ridden person actually sort of repenting for his guilt, or at least finding a solution for his guilt, you are left sort of emotionally in a vacuum. And that's a problem that almost everybody will feel when you come out of the movie. But the problem is that you're almost there, right? As a creator, they've experimented on a concept so immense that They're trying to tackle selfishness, the guilt out of it, the sort of mortality around individuals and how their choices affects other people's mortality as well. It's such a vast canvas that I don't even think they should have made a movie like this. It's so difficult to encompass so many things into it that you should just laud the fact that there are people who can actually think about making a movie like this. There are stretches in this movie, dialogues in this movie that are so incredibly poignant that you want to feel good for it. It's almost like and this is why I thought I'll thematize it around Kamal's dialogue. You almost feel the need for a god, or you feel for the need for emotion, but it's almost plucked away. It's almost like never given enough room and life to sort of breathe through those characters. So all characters performed excellently. So Simbu is great. Kamal is amazing at what he does. Those simple nuances, the eye glances, those close-up shots where you're literally peering into the eyes of Kamal Haasan, it's beautiful. Almost all characters are given incredible close-up shots and they perform so well. There is so much energy when there is those close-up shots that it almost feels like that is the compensation that you're sort of feeling for a lack of emotional touch in some parts of this movie. The technical department is to be lauded for. Like Ravi K. Chandran is amazing. The scenery is amazing. The choice of locations are just magnificent. A.R. Rahman's music. Although I do have a gripe with the fact that Muthu never really came into the movie. But other than that, I thought all songs were really, really wonderful. In some cases, I thought the music sort of didn't fit the mold in the start. But I think the BGM in most circumstances was incredibly apt and incredibly performative as well. Editing was sleek. I think all of this culminates into the fact that everybody did an excellent job with a concept so difficult to sort of condense into a 2.5, 3 hour film that it became impossible for them to find a way to sort of reconcile all of these problems. And therefore, the way that this movie comes out is establishment of conflict and then a revenge saga that follows in the second half. I don't see it that way. I honestly don't want to see it that way as well, because I think the second half is about a selfish person realizing his guilt, but never really knowing how to sort of manage that guilt, never really internalizing it, and therefore having to externalize this guilt. Every moment of this character is filled with that dread of death, but death never really affects him because he is so selfish that death itself doesn't want to come close to him. So that's the dichotomy. You're left with longing. You're left with the fact that this is a movie that could have been so great if only they had maybe better writing or better time on it, or maybe a mini series around it. I don't know what it is. I really can't put my finger to it, but it just doesn't become the classic that you want it to be. Characters in this movie, all of them have acted really well. Ashok, Selvan, particular mention. It's such a wonderful thing to watch, like a Nayagan arc, but not in the vein that it is a Nayagan arc. And it's such a beautiful character, even though the screen time isn't as much as the others. I think Ashok does a really good job. So does Abhirami. So does, oh my God, Jojo George is so fun to watch. He's such a delight and has such aura and presence on screen. It's just that all of these characters have limited time to showcase who they are, and they do, except that the script sort of is so magnanimous that you feel like these characters are shrunk within those big pieces, and therefore it's not easy for you to access why these characters do things the way they do. It was also fun seeing Chinijay and Vayapuri and Vadiyu Karasiyama, such great actors who've come into this movie. So kudos to the fact that this is such a huge star cast. But yeah, you are left longing, and I honestly think this is a movie that could have been a classic if only there was a way to condense the kind of material that it is. I'm hoping this video doesn't discourage anybody to go and watch the movie. I still think it is a very important movie for people to watch, especially cinephiles to watch, because you will know ambition and you will know the frailties of ambition. When a filmmaker is so ambitious, the sort of cast is so ambitious that the ambition sort of overweighs the execution. You will realize that mismatch here. It's an excellent sort of representation of huge ambition, but like a lackluster sort of execution. So you're left with, oh, what it could have been. I'm hoping with the fact that you have directors like Karthik Subraj with Retro or Manirathnam with Thug Life, they don't get discouraged by the fact that these movies may not immediately impact audiences, but I think audiences in time will learn to appreciate the fact that there were filmmakers who actually tried to push the envelope and didn't hold back. You need to encourage these kind of art, which is why everybody should make an effort to watch movies like this rather than just watch like popcorn masala, which gives you nothing but brain rot. This is a movie that makes you think, even if it fails at sort of giving you the emotional closure that you want for all of these characters, it still makes you think. And that, I think, is a much better sort of cinematic world that you'd want to live in. Final thoughts on just representation, which is something that I think is important. I think the women in this movie get shortchanged because they're all tools of men. And because they are tools of men, you're never really getting enough scope for these women to sort of actualize any agency for themselves. It almost feels like they are trapped within the selfishness of all of these characters, all of these men. There is justification to the fact that all of these men are horrible people. It doesn't celebrate these horrible people. It sort of almost melodramatically brings them down to the fact that all of these women are the ones who actually deserve more of a say and more of the ability to sort of lead people. But that's the problem that you have when you have movies that sort of over glorify sort of violence against women versus movies like this, which sort of don't give enough agency but try and justify the lack of agency as well. So I think both spectrums are problematic, which is you justify a lack of agency and at the same time you have other movies that just don't give two rats about women at all. There needs to be a balance in terms of how you represent women and represent like marginalized characters in these movies. There can be methods to do it, but I think this movie can do much better if it had more women like centric ideas in this movie as well. And I'm not saying it needs to be like feministic and all of that, but I think agency for women in these movies need to be given a little more credence compared to what has been. And I'm sure, like with Maniratnam, I'm sure that this is probably an aberration and not the norm, because all of his women have always been wonderful characters. So I leave you with the fact that this is an excellent attempt. This is a movie that you should watch. This is ambition that has failed to live up to his expectation, but it isn't a bad movie at all. It is a good but flawed movie, and I'd rather watch good but flawed movies. Thank you very much for your time. We'll catch up soon. Bye.